everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WOC Reader, and welcome back to my channel. So as the title suggests, I hit 50k. And that means a lot to me because I've been working on this fantasy story for a little bit over a year now. And it's hard to believe like where it started and where I am now. I didn't always have time to consistently work on it, so up until a couple of months ago I was working a full-time job that was taking up a lot of my time. The past year has been a big struggle for me. I was dealing with a lot, and so lately I've been able to put more into my writing, and I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I feel like the bulk of like my biggest like writing strides actually came out of a time when I was experiencing the most grief. I needed a distraction, and I had my writing group and we were just writing every single day, and it was really pushing me to move forward. And I do try and write every day. It doesn't always happen, so I want to get back to at least being able to put words on the page every day and being consistent. If I can do like at least 100 words a day, I'm happy. Because sometimes you see like people writing like 500 words. You see people like writing, they're like, I wrote like 1,000 words today, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm writing nothing. And granted, a lot of the people you see are on deadline, and sometimes people can like fast draft, but that doesn't necessarily mean the book is good. I am more concentrated on not only putting words on page, but making sure they are cohesive and make sense so I don't have to do a shit ton of work later on, but also making sure that my work is intentional. Like, I found that most of the authors that I greatly admire are very intentional with their writing, and I don't want to have to do like 20 drafts, but I fast draft the first one. I want like to be able to get the bulk of it in draft one and then be able to build upon it with each draft without having to do any like drastic rewrites or changes unless absolutely necessary. And writing a fantasy is not easy. So I read so many books, and I really had to stop and think of what I like in fantasy, what I want to see in fantasy. I decided I wanted to write a YA fantasy because I just find that so many of the YA fantasies that are on shelf right now are kind of like inspired by the YA fantasies of the early 2010s, and people call that like the YA Renaissance. I wasn't really reading YA during that time. I was in college and I just had too much going on. Those books at that point weren't interesting to me. When I did read for free, like, because I wasn't doing a whole ton of like free reading, I was reading like some romance here and there, some cozy mystery here and there, stuff on the side for free on Amazon. I wasn't reading those stories. So a lot of times people will quote those stories, they'll talk about those stories, and I'm like, huh? Like, it just doesn't for me. And I feel in some ways that's helping me with this story, because I read a lot of YA as a teen in the early 2000s, and while a lot of people talk about there were no black books during that time, there were black books during that time. I was reading a lot of books from Kamani True and Daphina, which were specifically targeted towards black teens. And yeah, it was contemporary stuff. We didn't really have like a lot of fantasy representation during that time, just in general, from black authors. Like, one of the biggest ones who doesn't get their props today is Labank. She really paved the way for a lot of people. And even though I didn't read her, I know a lot of people who did and enjoyed her work, and that was really their intro to fantasy. I decided like I wanted to do an urban fantasy because I love urban fantasy stories, and I wanted to be able to capture some of the fun of like the urban fantasies of the 2000s while also being black and authentic and something that teens can pick up and enjoy. Like, I specifically wanted to write something that I feel like would appeal to the children near me. Like, pre-pandemic, I was riding the bus into work, and there was a charter school across the street from my job. So I was riding the bus with teens all day, hearing like the types of discussions they were having, hearing some of the out-of-pocket stuff that they were trying to say. So I've been really trying to capture something in a book for them that they can relate to. Mine is set in like a college setting, so even though I haven't been in college for a while, I know there are a lot of basic things that don't really change. And I've been like watching vlogs and stuff with different readers on YouTube just to make sure like I'm capturing like some of the things that they're talking about and how they're talking too, because I don't want my teens to sound like they are reading from Shakespeare or something. I don't want them to sound like a 30-year-old person. I want them to sound realistic for their age range and their setting. And I don't want to give you guys like a ton of writing advice because I feel like there's so many people giving out writing advice, and you get bombarded with so much and some of it is contradictory. I just want to give you guys the tips that really help me. So I am currently reading How We Do It, which is a craft book by Black authors. It's comprised of various essays, interviews, etc. And I've been studying it and just writing down little tips and tidbits that I think are helpful to me and are really making me think about my story differently. And since my story is very character focused, I've been really concentrating on making these characters great. And the essay Asking Questions and Excavating Memory had just a great list of questions to sit down and figure out about your character, and I just want to share those with you. So number one is, what relationships are important to your character? Describe them. What relationships are problematic to your character? Describe them. Who does your character confide in? What does your character believe in? What is your character most afraid of? What makes your character happy? What makes your character's favorite thing? What's your character's favorite thing to do for pleasure? What did your character eat for breakfast? What did being good mean in their family? What is an object your character cherishes? So I think those are just good questions to figure out your character, because I read that there's like 3 main components of character development. So there's their goal, which is what your character wants, their motivation, which is why they want it, and the conflict, which is the obstacles that prevent them from getting it. And you have to ensure by the end of the story that your character has changed. So I try to keep that in mind while I'm writing, and I always want to make sure that I'm able to answer those questions, because sometimes you get an idea and the concept sounds great, but then you struggle to kind of execute it because it doesn't feel like it's really going in any direction. And I've read too many books where like the concept was amazing, but it was clear the writer didn't ask themselves any questions, because the character just kind of drones on, and then at the end things are rapidly resolved and it's kind of unsatisfying, and it doesn't really feel like we took anything from it. And that's not something I want people to say about this book. I want them to enjoy the journey. So I just want to say that I'm happy that I have made progress. I'm in the middle of the story now. Goal is to finish by the end of spring with the first draft and be able to have people read over it and give me their opinions. And I do want to thank everybody who's been following me on this writing journey. Some of you have been joining me on sprints weekly, which has really helped because it makes me sit down and focus on writing for a couple of hours and try to stay away from distractions. And I am really happy that I've found like a community on YouTube that's really passionate about writing, that read some of the same books I read, that looks at characters some of the same ways that I do and is really pushing me forward. And if you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!